So the Twin Orgron are actually the 5th encounter in Highmaul.
There are 2 bosses in this fight. You should probably gather that from the title. And they share a health pool, however.
Yes.
The first bot is Pole, and the other is Phemos.
The bosses use abilities based off their energy bar, and abilities are used at 33, 66, and 100.
The farther the bosses are spread apart, the more their haste is increased, okay? So you don't want to unnecessarily drag them across the room. There's no tank switching required, so each tank takes a boss. The only time the bosses should be split is when they use Whirlwind and when they use Shield Charge.
Yeah, I mean, you obviously, the benefit from splitting them is, you know, you're not soaking all these unnecessary abilities from the other boss, but you just want to keep a little gap. But anyway, the bosses will also not be able to gain any energy or use any abilities for the first 10 seconds of the fight. Not really that big of a deal, it just allows you to get them all set up.
Pole, we'll go over his abilities first.
Yeah.
Shield Bash deals a bit of damage to the tank and interrupts them.
Very annoying. Shield Charge will be used at 33 energy and will charge a raider, dealing damage and knocking anybody up in its path. So this ability actually deals more damage the further away the boss travels. So when Pole reaches the raider, it will also deal damage in a 10-yard radius, also knocking everyone back and putting a bleed on them for 18 seconds. Needless to say, this needs to be avoided. Tanks should pull the bosses apart when this is being used so that everyone has like a bit of a heads up as to where the boss is charging.
Pole will use Interrupting Shout at 66 energy and will deal raid-wide damage and interrupt anyone casting. So don't be using abilities when his Interrupting Shout is about to go off.
Pulverize is his last ability, and it's actually used at 100 energy, and it causes a bunch of stones or whatever they are to fall from the ceiling. Although when I looked up, I didn't see any stones, so, you know, I call bullshit. But anyway, this ability has like a 3-wave succession to it. The first wave will cause stones to fall on random raiders and deal damage in a 3-yard radius around them. The second wave will cause things to fall at a random location, dealing damage in an 8-yard range. And as you can see, there's a bit of a trend. And the third wave will cause one massive thingy to fall out from a random spot, dealing raid damage. Damage is reduced depending on proximity to the rocks, so play dodgeball and avoid the rocks.
Alright, now we'll go over Phemos' abilities. His first ability is Double Slash. It will be used on the tank and deals a ton of damage.
It deals a lot of damage. You know, you might need a CD. Probably not, but, you know, depends on your gear. Whirlwind will be used at 33 energy, and it is used over 9 seconds, and it deals damage to everyone hit by it and applying a debuff that increases damage taken by Shield Bash by 10% for every stack. The tank should pull the bosses apart for this.
Enfeebling Roar is used at 66 energy, and it debuffs everyone within 20 yards, increasing their damage taken by 300% for about 300 seconds. But this, the timer on this debuff is split between everyone hit. So everyone needs to try and be close to the boss for this one so they can soak and split the damage on this.
The last ability that Phemos will be using is Quake, and it'll be used at 100, and the boss tosses his weapons like in a box on the ground, dealing damage, but at the same time being a really annoying ability. This is the main like mechanic that you need to worry about in the fight. The weapons will then proceed to spread some like of the most bizarre and wacky fire I've ever seen. The fire deals a lot of damage and will cause you to take a lot more damage the longer you're in it. It's crucial people are not running through it. I mean, if you have to, you got to do it for a second, whatever. But this is literally the only difficult part of the fight. So when it's happening, besides everyone just needing to focus and dodge the fire, if you're standing to the rear of a weapon, so if you're standing like at the back in the opposite direction, you'll only be dealing with fire from the other 3 weapons. The fire spreads in like a forward cone towards the other weapons, so behind it is actually safe. Well, at least for that weapon. So instead of dealing with 4 sets of fire, you're dealing with 3.
Alright, so just to recap for the tanks, you're going to want 1 tank on each boss.
You're going to want to pull the bosses apart for Whirlwind and Shield Charge, but otherwise you're going to want to be pretty much stacking them.
Yeah, because they increase their haste the farther they're apart.
Yeah.
You can pop a CD for Double Slash if you feel like you need to.
Probably won't.
Yeah. And there's no tank switching.
No, there's no tank switching. Healers, don't be casting when Interrupting Shout goes off, because it really sucks to be interrupted.
Pulverize will definitely claim 1 victim, so just be ready to lay it down when they pop that off.
The tank on Phemos, or Phemos, depending on how he's feeling that day, will be taking a buttload from Whirlwind, so, just be ready to spam the crap out of them and have hots up on them.
A lot of damage will be going out on Quake and Shield Charge. These will be the time to pop healing cooldowns just to make sure you're in a safe spot, especially during Quake.
Yeah, like don't trank in the middle of all the fire. Did that once. DPS, they share health, so it doesn't really matter who you're DPSing, but we always all focus Pole because Phemos has the Whirlwind and you don't want to be anywhere close to him when that goes off.
Yeah. Same for healers, range DPS. Don't be casting when Interrupting Shout goes off.
Yep. So everyone's going to need to stack up tight for Enfeebling Roar.
Don't stand in the Whirlwind, Shield Bash, Fire, and Falling Debris.
Can I please stand in the fire?
Please, sir.
We lusted right at the beginning. You know, if you wanted to, you could... just lust at the beginning. This just makes sense.
The fight has a 9-minute enrage timer, but you shouldn't have a problem with it.
No, didn't even come close to hitting it. Standing behind the weapon during Quake is actually very beneficial for dealing with the fire because they move in really just weird patterns. But just dodging the fire needs to be your priority, and you'll be fine.
So we took an unofficial guild poll, and we found that Phoebos' abilities made many raiders quake.
Good luck, adventurer.
I'll be here all week.